Have you ever wondered, how did the world's deadliest conflict, World War I, truly begin? It all started with a spark in the heart of Europe in the summer of 1914. The heir to the throne of Austria-Hungary, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, was assassinated in Sarajevo by a Serbian nationalist. This act of violence was the catalyst that led to a chain of events that would change the world forever. Austria-Hungary, backed by Germany, declared war on Serbia, who was allied with Russia. This triggered a domino effect of alliances across Europe, with France and Britain joining Russia to form the Triple Entente, while Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy constituted the Central Powers. The tensions that had been brewing for years were now at boiling point. These alliances and rivalries, coupled with the assassination, were the perfect storm that ignited the Great War. The world watched in dread as armies mobilized and nations prepared for battle. Thus, a single bullet in Sarajevo triggered a war that would claim millions of lives. With the world divided into two, Central Powers and the Allies, the war had just begun. As the winds of war swept across the globe, there were key battles that shaped the course of this tumultuous period. Among them, the Battle of the Marne and the Battle of Verdun stand out. The Battle of the Marne, fought in September of 1914, was a defining moment for the Allies. It marked not just the halt of Germany's advance into France, but also the abandonment of the Schlieffen Plan, Germany's blueprint for victory. Then came the Battle of Verdun in February of 1916. Verdun was a battle of attrition, one of the longest and most devastating in human history. For 10 long months, the German and French armies grappled with each other, turning Verdun into a symbol of the futile and indiscriminate nature of war. As the war raged on, it brought with it new warfare technology that would forever change the face of combat. The introduction of tanks, for instance, brought a new dimension to land warfare. These steel beasts, initially developed by the British, could traverse the rugged, shell-torn terrain, providing a significant advantage over traditional infantry. The skies, too, were no longer safe. With the advent of planes, warfare took to the skies. These flying machines, though primitive by today's standards, were a game changer, being used for reconnaissance, bombing raids, and even dogfights. The war also saw the introduction of one of the most dreaded weapons, chemical warfare. Gases like chlorine and mustard gas were used to devastating effect, causing horrific casualties and provoking international outrage. But amid the chaos and carnage, let's not forget the human cost of this war. Millions of soldiers lived through the harsh conditions in the trenches, facing not just the enemy's bullets, but also disease, hunger, and the biting cold. These men, mere pawns in the hands of their leaders, bore the brunt of the war's horrors. In the midst of chaos and carnage, the world was changing forever. In a war that seemed endless, how did the world finally find its peace? This was a question on everyone's mind as the Great War raged on. The turning point came in 1917, when the United States, initially an onlooker, stepped onto the world stage. Their entry was like a shot of adrenaline to the exhausted Allies, tipping the balance of power in their favor. In the early days of 1919, world leaders gathered in the Palace of Versailles to sign a treaty, a symbol of hope for lasting peace. The Treaty of Versailles, however, was far from a fair deal. It placed the entire blame for the war on Germany, demanding them to disarm, make substantial territorial concessions, and pay reparations. This was a bitter pill for Germany to swallow, a pill that would later fuel resentment, leading to another global conflict. The end of the war brought more than just a treaty. Empires that had held sway for centuries were dismantled. The Russian, Ottoman, German, and Austro-Hungarian empires crumbled, giving birth to new countries and changing the geopolitical landscape forever. These changes were akin to pieces of a puzzle being rearranged, creating a new picture, a new world order. Yet the scars of the war ran deep. Families were torn apart, economies were shattered, and societies were left to pick up the pieces. The aftermath of the war was a time of reconstruction, but also a time of reflection on the immense human cost of conflict. It's been over a century since the war ended, but its impact is still evident today. We see it in the borders of nations, in the rise and fall of ideologies, and in the collective memory of our societies. World War I ended, leaving a world forever changed and a legacy that still echoes a century later.